Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today I've got some r/TraumatizeThemBack for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Akari Cookie. Group of dudes laughed about me buying a bunch of sweets, dropped a nuclear bomb on them. That actually just happened today. I don't know which flair to use, and I apologize for my English, as it's not my first language. I was in a supermarket buying a bunch of sweets. I mean it. And it looked like I shoved the whole aisle of vegan chocolate in my basket and dumped it on the conveyor belt. Vegan chocolate here is mostly small candy bars and way too expensive 100-gram chocolate bars. It was like 20 to 25 euros worth of candy. Looked a lot because the sheer amount of candy bars was way too much, but not like a full conveyor belt of candy. Well, in front of me were a group of older teenage boys, like 18 to 19 years old, talking and laughing, till they saw my sweets. Now they laughed again, but at me, at my sweets galore, at my big belly, BMI of 30 says hi. Normally, I would just give them a sharp glance and say nothing, but no, not today. I had a kinda good day today. My shyness couldn't hold me back. I took my headphones off, I turned the music off at the checkout, and only had them on because they were soothing for me, and said, calmly, "Have fun laughing, but when you find out that you have cancer that'll probably kill you, you're the first one buying a mountain of sweets." Silence. All the color left their faces and they quietly paid and left. Now, I don't have cancer, just crippling depression, but I thought, what if they laugh at someone who has cancer? How will they feel? I don't want anyone to feel bad, but people who laugh at others, they have to learn what impact they may have. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But today, I ruined their fun they had on the cost of others. Oh, and I told the cashier that I didn't have cancer, I just wanted to teach them a lesson. Apparently, these guys are there often. Probably after going to the gym, which is right upstairs. They had gym bags with them. And they like to make fun of others. Smile at it, I know I have awful eating habits. Eating is a coping mechanism for me and for others too. And I know it's not a healthy one. I know that a BMI of 30 is too much, and I know that it shows. I am slowly working on it, but everyone has fallbacks, like today. Regardless, no one deserves to be laughed at when they are at a low point in their life and or sick. Today, they just laughed at me. Tomorrow, they might have laughed at someone who lost someone dear to them or who got a death sentence. I don't want that to happen to anyone, ever. And if it means bonking them with the guilt hammer, so be it. I don't wish that anyone gets a cancer diagnosis. I wish I could take the cancer and sickness of others onto me, so people can enjoy their lives, but I can't take that sickness from others. So maybe with what I did, one other person doesn't get laughed at, which is a win for me. Still, I know it was a nuclear option and rather insensitive, and I own up to that, and I apologize for it. Also, as someone reported me to Reddit resources, I am fine. I will try to think optimistic and assume that it was out of concern and not to harass me. Yes, I have depression, chronic, and have had it my whole life, which is why I may sound cynical or pessimistic sometimes. But I am in psychiatric care and I take my medication every day. Just forget my vitamins sometimes, but who doesn't? So, general question, and this is more of a kind of poking at my brain here because I've always wondered this. For someone who has had cancer or had a family member have cancer, how do you feel about people weaponizing or utilizing a false cancer diagnosis in order to put someone in their place? Like, is it fine in your eyes because it's for the greater good, or do you feel like they're taking something from you in order to further their own agenda? I've always really wondered that, and I thought this is the perfect opportunity to ask it because I have a platform and I can ask stupid questions all the time. And yeah, here I am asking this question. Is it a stupid question? I don't think it is. I think it's a genuine, actual, honest question. Legitimate trash, 6111. Ex stalked and harassed me after we broke up. 10 years later, karma caught up with him. My ex, 34 male, recently reached out to me, 32 female, after 10 years of no contact. When we broke up, we agreed to stay friends, but what started as the occasional text or phone call from him escalated into multiple texts, calls, and voicemails, Facebook messages, and emails, asking why I hadn't responded yet. These would usually cycle in patterns of wanting to hang out as friends, telling me he still loved me, and calling me heartless and childish for pushing him away. At one point, he called me, extremely angry, because he had been logging into my Facebook and seen a message from my new housemate, which he thought was flirtatious. I changed all my passwords, blocked him on everything, tried going full no contact. 2 months later, I find out he created a fake Facebook profile using a sexual image of a woman. It didn't show her face, and an imitation of my name, and was using it to interact with my friends. I'm young. I didn't realize this is criminal. I didn't think to call the police. He then used the photo to ask immoral strangers on 4chan if they could investigate and prove that it was me. So, at this point, he realized he'd gone too far and apparently had a full psychotic break from reality. His landlord called the police and he ended up detained under the Mental Health Act for being a danger to himself and others. A year of no contact later, he creates a new Facebook to reach out again, asking to meet up for a no-strings-attached coffee, as he's written a book about his psychosis and he wanted to clear the air with me. I decline a face-to-face chat but asked to read his book. He's confused to why I don't want to meet him and becomes angry that I keep asking to read the book. I block him again. After 10 years of complete no contact, he reaches out again on another new account. I don't answer, but this prompts me to check his profile and see that he just self-published the book. In it, he admits to reading my messages but fails to mention all the stalking, harassment, impersonation, defamation, and dodgy shit on 4chan. Instead, he accuses me of being the abusive one. I discover I still have access to all Facebook conversations, even from deleted accounts. I send him the screenshots of him admitting to these crimes 10 years ago. He blocks me. I discover he's on Twitter, saying I'm accusing him of breaking the law when he hasn't. I create a Twitter account and post the screenshots there. In a grave error of judgment, he retweets me, trying to mock me, but in doing so draws attention to my account. He panics, calls the police, and claims I'm harassing him. The police call me for my side, and I explain all of this. They call him back to tell him he's the only one who's broken the law, and if he contacts me again, I have the right to press charges. He had even submitted evidence for his claim, which the police told me hadn't done him any favors and actually supported my version of events. He somehow still thinks he's in the right and made a 25-minute YouTube video complaining about how none of this is fair. He acknowledges that my Twitter account is harmless and within the confines of the law. The only thing that connects it to him are the screenshots of his now deleted replies saying, "No one cares about this but you. Move on." But complains about how draining it is for him that I'm attacking his reputation. Although he can't see himself in my shoes and realize how he traumatized me 10 years ago, it's nice to know he had a taste of his own medicine and it made him throw a tantrum. And also that his own volunteered evidence damned him. Good God, I can't even describe how good that felt. God, I really do love it when people accidentally post evidence that actually invalidates their arguments and makes them look to be the bad guy when they think it's actually clearing their name. Oh boy, do I love that. If only there were examples from my personal life that I could actually give to help support this claim. Oh well. But on another more important note, if you do end up in a scenario like this, please, for the love of God, keep a paper trail, keep screenshots, because you never know. That folder of hundreds of screenshots might actually come in handy one day. Paper trails are important, and OP here is a perfect example of that. They kept screenshots in order to show their innocence and actually were able to make a great case for themselves to keep their psychotic ex, quite literally in this case, off of their back. Hadley Witch, because life sucks, that's why. A bit of backstory. My next door neighbor growing up, who became a third grandma to me, and I will refer to her as Gran from now on, was originally a Jehovah's Witness until her divorce, when the church kicked her out. As a result, she's not fond of that organization anymore and really doesn't like talking to them. One day I was over there visiting and we noticed a group of JWs making their way through the neighborhood. Gran makes a comment about hoping they don't come to her door. I told her I'd handle it if they did. Two of them came up to her door, a younger teenage girl and what was probably her mother. They knock, I answer the door. The exchange goes like this. Girl, have you ever wondered why bad things happen to good people? Me, because life sucks and then you die. The look on that poor girl's face was priceless. My gran could not stop laughing. I almost felt bad about this, but they never came to my gran's house again. And honestly, that was far more important to me. So I chose this post because I have a bit of a funny confession to make. And I feel kind of bad because while they are very incredibly nice women, they can't take a hint. So every few months, I get the same pair of JW missionaries that appear at my door. It's the same old ladies, and every time I tell them that I'm part of a different religion and they nod along, they seem to believe it, then they just kind of move on, and I feel both bad about it, but at the same time, I just wish they would understand and take the hint that I'm not interested. But I also don't want to be, like, overtly rude to them because they're incredibly nice, and I'm not one to attack their faith just because they have a specific view of life that's different than I do, despite my disagreement with specifically their doctrine. I'm sure if I have any ex-JWs in my audience, they'll understand why. But basically, I've spent the past 4 years of my life screwing with and fucking with this same two group of missionaries, and they always fall for it. I kind of feel bad, but at the same time, they always show up, they sit at my door for like 2 minutes, they wait for me to answer, and every time I feel guilty, and I don't know, alright? Does this make me a bad person that I lie to the missionaries? I have to genuine question here. Tony Tubular. Coworker tried to shame me for touching my shoe. This happened a few years ago in a large corporate office I worked in. I was conversing with my boss while sitting on this file cabinet drawer type of thing that had a cushion on top for people to sit on. Probably about 6 months into working there. Enter asshole coworker, or AC. AC worked on a team adjacent to ours, and was the type of woman who was generally disagreeable and would put people down, especially doing it in front of others to humiliate them. Probably to project some sort of insecurity or the need to be better than others, I don't know. Unfortunately, she had quickly worked her way into a mid-level position at a young age, which added to her arrogance. Well, she approached and pulled up a chair to chit-chat with my boss and I about something we were working through. As I was sitting on the drawer, I had one leg crossed over another and must have been playing with my shoe and shoelaces subconsciously with my hand. Out of nowhere, AC interrupts the conversation and exclaims, "Ew! You just touched the bottom of your shoe! That's like so gross! Do you know how disgusting the bottom of a shoe is?" My boss and I kind of just looked at each other. I think AC wanted me to act embarrassed and coalesce to her gripe or bow down to her or something, but I just responded, "Why would you call me out like that other than to be an asshole?" She was shocked and dumbfounded that someone actually retorted back to her snide comment. She tried backtracking, saying, "Well, I just don't want you to get sick because the bottom of your shoe has so many germs." To which I responded, "Okay, then send me a Slack message or tell me privately instead of trying to humiliate me in front of people. That's just completely rude and disrespectful." She quickly changed the subject back to what we were talking about and wrapped up her involvement before leaving back to her desk. My boss turned to me, trying to hold back her laugh, saying, "I've never seen someone put AC in her place before. You just absolutely roasted her." That was definitely one of my smoothest comebacks to date, and she never mocked me again. So, I only ever had one coworker who was like this, and it was my first boss when I was working at a fast food place. The guy was in his 30s and incredibly insecure, would oftentimes flirt with the female staff who had just turned 18. There's a lot of sketchy implications that I would love to divest further in another video, but anyways, any time that he had the opportunity to, he would always belittle me for no goddamn reason. I remember one time he got a haircut and like all the girls were like surrounding him like, "Oh, you look so cute with your hair," and he's just sitting there with his goofy fucking smile. And I walk out. I had been doing everyone's fucking job because they were all fraternizing with the boss, and I was left alone back there. And as I come out, he's like, "Yeah, at least my hair's better than Oz's." It's like, dude, what the fuck? Granted, I did have, like, at this point, kind of like emo scene skater kid hair because I was 17 and my father was no longer giving me buzz cuts, so I grew my hair out and I've been growing it out. But still, like, who the fuck does that? And why were you surrounding yourself with 17-year-old girls, you fucking creep? But I remember all I said was, "Okay," and then just turned around and got back to work. It was just, why bother? What a goober. Anyways, have you had any experiences like this in your work? And if so, how close did it make you to ending up on the 6 o'clock news? Numerous Ambition 13. I told you to draw an auto-portrait, not to try to be funny. To preface this incident, I have to admit I'm pretty specifically looking. I have a skin condition called vitiligo, which means I have depigmentation patches of skin around my body, face included thanks to my luck, as well as a visible facial scar. It's something I've learned to happily live with, and so it doesn't bother me anymore. During COVID-induced online classes, during kinda local equivalent of high school, we got a new arts and music teacher. As neither of those subjects had streamed classes, she did not know what I looked like. The first task from arts she gave us was to draw or paint an auto-portrait as true to life as possible, probably to test our skill without risking us 18-year-olds being smartasses. So I painted an auto-portrait, scar, vitiligo, and all, and submitted it. The next day I received a message saying that she does not find it funny and demanding me to explain myself. I figured it'd be a lot better to not argue, told her that I do indeed look like that, and just sent her a selfie. She did not take it too well, accused me of photoshopping the picture or applying makeup, and threatened to report me if I did not get on a video call that instant. So I got on the video call she had already set up, turned on my camera, greeted her, moved around a bit, and scrubbed my face with makeup remover. To both of our dismays, it did nothing. She kind of stuttered and mumbled a few words before apologizing, after which she promptly said I should have clarified how I looked while submitting the picture. But hey, a little trust, no? We both got off the call with no further incidents during online classes. It was fun seeing her stare at me in apologetic disbelief when we returned to school, though. Also, gotta love that you should have warned me what you looked like when submitting an auto-portrait. Like, I do wonder if maybe this teacher just dealt with a lot of students who just pulled bullshit like this all the time. It was just like, oh, come on, not again. Then to their dismay and abject horror, it turns out the person was telling the truth. Like, there has to be some kind of chain of events that cause the teacher to be dismissive of the possibility their student actually had this form of disfigurement rather than, believing them on the merit of it. Because I'm not trying to defend their actions, by the way. I'm just genuinely curious what kind of steps led to this circumstance to happen, because I feel like teachers should at least be trained and have an understanding that this is a possibility that could be in their classroom. I mean, I would think that teachers would have that kind of training at least. I mean, it makes sense to me that they would. Like, they would, right? Teal Calla Lily. Yes, I went on a long solo trip without my family, because my mom died. I recently completed a mostly solo 100-day trip around Europe. I broke it up into 2 trips, and it was an amazing experience. I'm also a married mother of 3 kids. During my travels, I got a lot of judgment, especially from women, that I was a horrible parent for abandoning my family to take time for myself. Until I told them why. You see, this trip was my silver lining and goal that got me through the worst 4 years of my life, my healing journey. My mother had been diagnosed with early onset dementia February of 2020, and was already in the mid-stages when she finally got her diagnosis. She had a boyfriend but lived on her own and was a retired psychiatric nurse. I mention this because she knew what was happening, but was in denial and hid a lot of stuff from me until she couldn't anymore. I became her legal guardian and started staying at her house 1 night a week for a year before I finally got her onto a memory care unit May of 2021. That year she was home was hell on earth. She argued with a police officer for over an hour. I wasn't her daughter, as just one example. Then it was 2.5 years of weekly visits to a memory care unit. As much as the staff really tried and cared, the memory care unit is not a fun place to go, and I will leave it at that. She died December 2023. I held her hand with one of my hands and held my grandmother's, her mother's hand, with the other when she took her last breath. I took a long break off work and went on an eat, pray, self-love tour that my wonderful husband supported me through. I was solo for 79 days of my 100-day trip. My husband and kids, 8, 11, and 14, joined me in France for 10 days, and my bestie joined me in Italy and Ireland for 11 days. Though it happened on many occasions, the best came at a wellness retreat and a British snob. She asked when I was going home, and I explained this was just one stop on my amazing trip. She went on and on about how she could never abandon her family and heavily implied I was a horrible, selfish person who loves myself more than my kids. Until I said, not that it's any of your business why I'm traveling, but I'm on this trip because my mom died from dementia, and I'm at this wellness retreat to take time for myself to process my grief and from the last 4 years I went through. Do you know how hard it is to heal from caregiver burnout when you have 3 kids to take care of? Her jaw dropped to the floor and sputtered sorry for your loss before bolting from the table. The rest of the people at the table went silent. A smirk on my face watching her hightail it back to her room was priceless. All I can really do in this is offer my condolences to OP for what they went through, because honestly, that's one of my biggest fears, is watching someone that I love lose who they are. And I'm lucky enough to know that in my family, at least, memory loss and signs of this doesn't usually begin until you're far past 90 years old, on both sides, thankfully. But it still is something where I don't know how I would be able to handle seeing my mother or my father lose who they are as a person and forget me. That would absolutely crush me, so I can't even begin to blame OP for wanting to do a trip like this, and I can only hope that they're able to further heal and process the grief of what has happened to them over the past 4 years. This one's a bit different, as it's more in line with the videos that I post on the main channel compared to what's posted here, but I feel like it's a perfect example and perfectly in line with the content that is currently in this video. User EW73. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I require insulin to live, multiple times a day. When I was in middle school many years ago, we didn't have insulin pumps and had to use syringes and vials like everyone else. The school refused to let me carry it with me, meaning I had to go to the nurse's office several times a day to inject. It's not just before lunch, but could be any number of times depending on the current blood sugar levels. The district then cut nurse staff to just spending half a day at 2 schools, and the nurse left before I had lunch. I asked the office staff to unlock the office so I could take my insulin and eat lunch. They refused. By middle school, I'd been dealing with type 1 for about 5 years, and didn't take shit on the topic. I went to the school lobby, picked up the payphone, I just dated myself, and called 911, telling them, "Hi, I'm at school, and I'm a type 1 diabetic and the office won't unlock a door and let me take insulin." They sent a fire truck, and a bunch of firemen met me outside and walked me to the office and asked, while ignoring the staff, which room was the nurse's office. I pointed to the door and he was like, "All right, boys, chop it down. This kid needs his insulin." Suddenly, the office secretary could unlock the door, and I didn't need to put it in the nurse's office every day anymore. Traveling madness from Tumblr. Based fireman. The real Siebes. You sign up for the job because you want to save lives, and sometimes you get the chance to just be really, really clear about, yes, it is my job to save lives. There is an obstacle, and I am paid to use an axe to solve this problem. And Dark Directed responds, sometimes you're a hammer, well in this case an axe, and the problem really is a nail, or well in this case a door. First things first, I totally believe the firemen should have just ignored staff and cut the door down anyways. That would have really taught them a lesson to actually listen to students who need their insulin. Also, because how often does a fireman get to cut a door down when they're not dealing with an infernal blaze and just get to teach someone a lesson? I'm also very glad that in recent years, schools have come to understand the actual critical need of insulin among students and shouldn't just be blocking that shit off from them. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.